You're guilty, and now everyone knows it.
The marble hallway stretched endlessly before Eva, each click of her heels against the polished floor amplifying her heartbeat. The courthouse air conditioning bit through her blazer, raising goosebumps she refused to acknowledge. Camera flashes erupted behind the security glass, where reporters pressed against the barrier, hungry for whatever story was about to unfold. Eva, senior partner David Harrison, appeared beside her, tablet in hand. Last-minute reassignment. Blake Logistics fraud case. High-profile defendant, arraignment in 5. She accepted the digital file, her thumb hovering over the screen. The name is loaded. Rowan Blake. Time collapsed. Her breath caught somewhere between her chest and throat, but years of courtroom training kept her face neutral. David was already walking away, oblivious to the earthquake happening inside her skull. The billionaire who once called her infertile had no idea his new lawyer was the woman he broke and the mother of his secret twins. Eva pushed through the heavy courtroom doors. The gallery hummed with whispered speculation. Across the room, flanked by 2 bailiffs, sat Rowan Blake. Wrists bound in steel cuffs that seemed absurd against his $1,000 suit. His dark hair showed threads of silver now. The sharp jaw she'd once traced with her fingers was harder, leaner. Their eyes met. The recognition hit him like voltage. His lips parted. Color drained from his face. She crossed the well of the court, set her briefcase down with a controlled click, and extended her hand across the defense table. "Good morning, Mr. Blake. I'm Eva Moreau. I'll be representing you." His bound hands lifted awkwardly. "Eva?" The word came out strangled. "What are you?" "We'll have time to discuss strategy after arraignment." She withdrew her hand, opened her briefcase. Professional, distant, everything he'd taught her to be before he destroyed her. The bailiff called the court to order. "Would you defend the person who shattered you if they were facing years behind bars?" This isn't just about Eva and Rowan. This is about every one of us who's been told we weren't enough, too broken, too damaged, too something to be loved. It's about facing the person who spoke those words over you and choosing between justice, revenge, or simply doing what you were trained to do. Here's what I want you to think about. If someone from your past, someone who hurt you deeply, suddenly needed you desperately, could you show up? Would you walk away and let them face the consequences alone? Or would you stand in that courtroom, hands shaking on your briefcase, and do the job anyway? Drop a comment below and tell me what you'd do. Be honest. This story gets messy, morally complicated, and deeply human. If you're here for the kind of tale that makes you question everything you thought you knew about forgiveness and power, hit that subscribe button. You won't want to miss where this goes. The judge's voice faded into background noise as Eva's mind fractured into 2 realities. In one, she was 36-year-old senior associate Eva Moreau, reviewing charges of securities fraud and wire transfers. In the other, she was 24, sitting in a doctor's office while Rowan's words carved themselves into her bones. Infertile. "I'm sorry, Miss Moreau. The endometriosis damage is extensive." And later, in their apartment, Rowan's voice, cold and final. "I can't build a future with someone who can't give me a family." He'd left 3 days after that diagnosis. No forwarding address. Just a check for 2 months' rent and a note that said he hoped she'd find someone who wanted less. 6 weeks later, she'd gotten different news. Impossible news. Twins. Now those twins were 12 years old. Asking why other kids had dads who came to soccer games. And the man who'd called her broken sat 5 feet away, about to plead not guilty to charges that could lock him away for a decade. The question wasn't whether she could defend him. The question was whether she'd let him see what he'd left behind, or use his ignorance as the sharpest weapon in her arsenal. To understand why Eva's hand trembled as she stood to address the judge, why her throat tightened around words that should have been routine, we need to go back 12 years. Back to a much smaller room, a much bigger dream, and the moment everything Eva believed about herself got rewritten without her permission. Eva Moreau was 24 when she walked into the converted warehouse that housed Blake Logistics, bar exam results still warm in her inbox. The office smelled like diesel and coffee. Desks were plywood sheets balanced on sawhorses. She was the company's first in-house counsel, hired not because they could afford her, but because they couldn't afford not to have one. Her first assignment sat waiting on her makeshift desk, a distribution contract with a supplier in Shanghai. The previous broker had already signed off on it. She read it twice, then picked up a red pen. Rowan Blake found her 3 hours later, the contract covered in strike-throughs and marginal notes. "The broker approved this yesterday," he said, leaning against the doorframe. Eva didn't look up. "The broker isn't a lawyer. Clause 14 gives them unilateral termination rights with 0 notice. Clause 9 caps your damages at $10,000 regardless of actual loss. You're one shipping delay away from bankruptcy." Silence. Then Rowan pulled up a crate and sat down. "Show me." She walked him through every trap buried in the language. By midnight, they'd rewritten the entire agreement. By morning, the supplier had signed the revised version. Rowan made coffee in a dented pot and handed her a mug. "You're not afraid to cross things out. That's what you pay me for," Eva replied. He smiled. "Not enough, apparently. What started as one late night became dozens. The warehouse office became their shared universe. They ate Thai food straight from containers, sitting on shipping crates while the city outside shifted from dusk to dawn. Eva learned that Rowan had grown up in foster care, bouncing between 6 homes before aging out of the system at 18. He'd built his first delivery route with a borrowed truck and a pager. She told him about her mother, a single parent who cleaned office buildings at night so Eva could go to college, about scholarships and student loans that would take 20 years to pay off. They understood each other's hunger, not for luxury, but for stability, for proof that they could build something permanent. Rowan drove the vision, expansion, contracts, partnerships. Eva managed the risk, compliance, liability, the legal scaffolding that kept everything standing. They became machines. Then they became something more. The shift happened on a Tuesday. Eva had stayed late finishing a filing. Rowan knocked on her door at midnight with 2 coffees. "Take a break, just 15 minutes. 15 minutes became 2 hours. They sat on the warehouse loading dock, legs dangling over the edge, talking about nothing important. Favorite movies, worst jobs, the kind of house they'd live in if money were no object. When the sun started rising, Rowan turned to her. "This is going to sound crazy, but I don't want this to end." "The conversation?" Eva asked. "Any of it. The work, the coffee. You." She kissed him as the first light broke over the skyline. Everything changed. Everything stayed exactly the same. Blake Logistics exploded over the next 18 months. Rowan landed a contract with a major retailer. Then another. Revenue tripled. The warehouse office gave way to a proper corporate suite. Media outlets started calling him a logistics prodigy. Investment banks circled, whispering about acquisitions and IPOs. Eva and Rowan bought a condo together, nothing extravagant, but theirs. They painted the bedroom on a Saturday, laughing when Eva got more paint in her hair than on the walls. They had coffee on the tiny balcony every Sunday morning, watching the city wake up below them. Then they started talking about the next dream, a family. A calendar appeared on their refrigerator, marked with small, hopeful symbols only they understood. Ovulation windows, doctor appointments, inside jokes about project management. It felt light at first, natural. They were building everything else together. Why not this? But months passed. Then 6 months. Then nearly a year. The jokes faded. The calendar stayed, but the marks grew more clinical, less hopeful. Neither of them knew that this quiet, private longing, this thing they barely spoke about even to each other, would become the crack that split everything wide open. Because people who look like they're on top of the world can be carrying weights no one else can see. The specialist's office was all soft lighting and abstract art, designed, Eva thought, to cushion bad news. Dr. Patel folded her hands on the desk, eyes on Eva. "The endometriosis has caused significant scarring. Conception is possible, but statistically unlikely without more aggressive intervention. IVF would give you the best chance, though even then." She trailed off diplomatically. Eva nodded, absorbing each word like a blow. Rowan sat beside her, silent. "And for you, Mr. Blake," Dr. Patel continued, "we'd want to run a full panel." "I'm fine," Rowan interrupted. "This is about her condition." The doctor's pause said everything. She turned back to Eva and kept talking. Rowan drove. Eva stared out the window at traffic that blurred into streaks of red and white. "There are options," she said quietly. "IVF, adoption. We could take a break, let the pressure off." "A break from what?" "From trying to have what everyone else gets without thinking about it." His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Rowan, it's not. She said you're endometriosis. You're scared. She also said you should get tested. I don't need to." His voice was flat, final. "We know where the problem is." Eva turned back to the window and said nothing. The word problem sat between them like a third passenger, cold and accusatory. 3 more months. 3 more cycles. Hormone injections that left bruises across Eva's stomach. Appointments scheduled around board meetings. Their bathroom counter became a pharmacy. Pills, syringes, ovulation kits, pregnancy tests. Blake Logistics hit record quarterly earnings. Rowan appeared on a business magazine's rising entrepreneurs list. Investors flew in from Singapore and London. At home, they moved around each other like strangers. Eva stopped mentioning her appointments. Rowan stopped asking. The condo that had felt like their shared future became a museum of silence. The calendar on the fridge, once covered in hopeful marks, now hung blank. Neither of them had the heart to take it down or the courage to fill it in. Success in public, desperation in private. Something had to break. It happened on a Thursday. Eva sat on the bathroom floor, the 3rd negative test in her hand. She'd stopped crying after the 2nd one. Now she just felt hollow. She found Rowan in the kitchen, tie loosened, whiskey glass in hand. "Negative," she said. He drained the glass. Poured another. "Of course it is. Rowan, do you know what they asked me today? The investors? If I had kids. They want to know I'm stable, that I can build a legacy. We can still..." "With what?" "You're infertile, Eva. That's the reality. You're the reason we can't have a family. You're the reason I have to stand in front of investors and lie about my future." The word hung in the air like poison. Infertile. Now we're struggling. Now this is hard for both of us. You're broken. Eva didn't yell, didn't cry. She simply stood, walked to the bedroom, and started packing. Rowan followed her. "Eva, wait." She folded clothes methodically. Toothbrush, laptop, the framed photo of them on the loading dock. She left that. "I didn't mean..." "Yes, you did." Her voice was eerily calm. "You meant every word." She zipped the suitcase, set her key on the kitchen counter, and walked out. Words spoken in anger don't disappear. They echo. They calcify. Blame is easier than facing our own fear, but it leaves scars that last far longer than the argument. Eva didn't look back. 6 weeks later, Eva sat in a new doctor's office in Savannah. She'd resigned from Blake Logistics with a terse email, taken a public defender job 3 states away, moved into her law school friend Angela's spare room. She'd assumed the nausea was stress, exhaustion, heartbreak manifesting physically. The pregnancy test said otherwise. The ultrasound revealed more. "Twins," the doctor said, smiling. "Congratulations." Eva stared at the screen. 2 tiny flickers of movement. Impossible, medically improbable. Real. The new doctor pulled her old records, frowned. "Your previous specialist noted your partner declined testing?" He said, "It was my problem." "Infertility is rarely one person's issue, Miss Moreau. Often it's a combination. Sometimes it's neither, just timing, stress, factors we don't fully understand." Eva opened her laptop twice that night, typed Rowan's email address, stared at the blank message field. Both times, she remembered his face in that kitchen, his words. She closed the laptop. Eva Moreau became 2 things at once, a single mother preparing for twins, and a woman who had been called infertile while 2 heartbeats grew steadily inside her. Rain hammered the hospital windows the night Sophia and Miles came into the world, 5 weeks early. Angela gripped Eva's hand through every contraction, filling the space where a partner should have been. When the doctor laid both babies on her chest, impossibly small, impossibly real, Eva felt something shift in her fundamental architecture. "You are not a mistake," she whispered against their damp heads. "You are my miracle. Both of you." Sophia curled her tiny fist around Eva's thumb. Miles let out a cry that sounded far too strong for someone so fragile. The nurse smiled. "They're fighters, just like their mama." Eva looked at their faces and made a silent vow they would never feel unwanted. The first year was survival. Eva's apartment in Savannah was a third-floor walk-up with walls so thin she could hear her neighbor's television through the bedroom. 2 cribs barely fit in the space meant for one. Her kitchen table doubled as a changing station and a desk. Nights blurred into a cycle: feed Sophia, burp Miles, change diapers, collapse for 90 minutes, repeat. When both babies finally slept, Eva studied case law with her eyes half closed, highlighter moving across pages on autopilot. The public defender's office paid enough to cover rent and formula, nothing extra. Angela brought groceries every Sunday. Eva's pride wanted to refuse. Her empty refrigerator wouldn't let her. Bills stacked up. Exhaustion became her permanent state. But the twins thrived. Years moved in snapshots. Sophia's first steps, taken while holding Miles' hand for balance. Their 3rd birthday, celebrated with grocery store cupcakes and construction paper decorations. On the first day of kindergarten, both of them were wearing backpacks nearly as big as they were. Eva stopped working for the public defender's office and joined a mid-sized firm specializing in criminal defense. Better pay, better hours, room to breathe. She became known for something specific: taking seemingly hopeless cases and finding the human story beneath the charges. Juries responded to her. She was tough, but never cruel. Aggressive in cross-examination, but compassionate in closing arguments. Defense attorneys talked. Word spread. When a headhunter from a major Atlanta firm called, Eva listened. The salary would mean private school for the twins, college funds, stability. She accepted the offer and moved her small family north. Atlanta meant proximity to Rowan's world, but Eva built walls accordingly. She avoided business news, changed the channel when financial programs aired, scrolled past headlines with his name. Sometimes it was impossible. Blake Logistics expanded into global shipping. Rowan's face appeared on magazine covers. The foster kid who built an empire. Logistics revolutionary transforms industry. Eva closed those tabs without reading. The twins knew nothing about any of it. They knew Atlanta, their school, their mom's courtroom stories. They knew soccer practice and homework battles and Saturday morning pancakes. They didn't know their father was a billionaire 40 minutes away. Sophia asked first, during bedtime when she was 7, "Why don't we have a dad?" Eva had practiced this answer 100 times. It still felt inadequate. "You do have a father. He lives in another city. We were together before you were born, but life got complicated. He doesn't know about you yet." Yet? Miles sat up in his bed. "Does that mean someday?" "Maybe. I don't know, sweetheart." "Did he do something bad?" Sophia pressed. Eva chose her words carefully. "He said something hurtful, and I made a choice to protect all of us." The word yet hung in the air, leaving possibility intact. For 12 years, their lives ran on separate tracks. Eva built her career case by case, argument by argument. She became senior associate at Harrison and Partners. She sat on bar association committees. She bought a small house with a backyard where the twins could play. Rowan's empire grew. Stock prices climbed. Acquisitions multiplied. They existed in the same city, breathing the same air, completely unaware of each other's proximity, until a single case file landed on Eva's desk and slammed those separate tracks together with the force of a freight collision. "Let me ask you something. Imagine raising 2 kids alone, while the man who hurt you becomes a billionaire plastered across every business magazine. You're working late nights, stretching paychecks, explaining to your children why they don't have a father at school events, while he's giving interviews about leadership and legacy. This isn't fiction for a lot of you watching. Maybe you left someone toxic. Maybe you're raising kids solo. Maybe someone walked away and built a whole new life while you picked up the pieces. So here's the real question. Would you ever tell him about the kids? Or would you protect your peace forever? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you'd do in Eva's position, because what she decides next changes everything. And if you're still here, still invested in this story, hit that like button. It tells me you want to see where this goes, because, trust me, the collision that's coming, nobody's walking away from it unchanged. For 12 years, their lives ran on separate tracks. Two people who once shared everything, now strangers divided by silence, secrets, and a wound that never fully healed, until a case file with Rowan Blake's name on it landed on Eva's desk and forced her to choose, walk away again, or step into the courtroom and face the man who called her broken. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Harmon stood before the judge, her voice crisp and confident. The people charged Rowan Blake with 12 counts of securities fraud, 8 counts of wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and making materially false statements to investors. Mr. Blake knowingly misrepresented quarterly earnings, concealed operational losses, and directed subordinates to alter financial documents. The evidence will show a pattern of deliberate deception spanning 18 months. The gallery murmured. Cameras clicked behind the press section. Judge Martinez looked to the defense table. How does your client plead? Eva stood, her voice steady. Not guilty, Your Honor. Bail was set at $2 million. Rowan posted it within the hour. As the courtroom emptied, Eva gathered her files, acutely aware of Rowan's eyes on her. They had a case to build and a past to navigate. The conference room at Harrison and Partners was all glass and polished steel, nothing like the warehouse office where they'd once worked side by side. Rowan sat across from Eva, hands clasped on the table. I can't believe you're really here, that you're my... Right now I need facts, Eva interrupted, opening her laptop. Not history. The prosecution has emails with your name on them. Fix the optics before the quarterly call. Make sure the board presentation reflects optimism. Walk me through what those mean. He blinked at her clinical tone, then seemed to accept it. I wanted the numbers to look better. I didn't lie. I said fix the presentation. Who did you say that to? My CFO, Martin Fisher. Eva made notes. Keep going. Over the next 3 weeks, a picture emerged. Rowan had pushed for aggressive growth. He demanded optimism in investor communications. He'd been arrogant, dismissive of caution, obsessed with optics. But the actual falsification, that came from Martin Fisher and 2 other executives who altered spreadsheets, backdated contracts, and hid losses in subsidiary accounts. When Rowan discovered the discrepancies during an internal audit, he'd ordered a review, which the prosecutors claimed was obstruction. You were negligent, Eva said bluntly during their 4th meeting. You created a culture where people felt pressured to deliver impossible results. That's dangerous, but dangerous isn't the same as criminal. Arrogance can be reckless. It can enable harm, but it's not always deliberate evil. Can you prove that in court? Rowan asked. I can try. Their meetings developed a rhythm. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, 2 hours each. They reviewed evidence, rehearsed testimony, and built timelines. Eva kept things professional, but occasionally the old ease slipped through. A shared observation about a prosecutor's overreach. A brief laugh at courtroom absurdity. Rowan never pushed. He answered her questions, followed her instructions, showed up prepared. One afternoon, he brought coffee, her old order, oat milk latte with an extra shot. You remembered, she said quietly. I remember a lot of things. He paused. I'm sorry isn't enough, Eva. I know that. But I need you to know, I've thought about what I said that night every single day since she took the coffee. We should get back to work. But she didn't throw the gesture away. Eva arrived 20 minutes late on a rainy Thursday, hair damp, apology ready. Sorry, my daughter had a school project emergency this morning. My son thought watching me panic was entertainment. Rowan looked up from his notes. You have kids? Twins. They're 12. The air in the room changed. Are you married? No. Single mom. She watched the math click behind his eyes. 12 years. Twins. Single. His face went pale. Are they mine? Eva set her briefcase down slowly. She could lie. Should lie, maybe. Protect the boundaries she'd built. But she was tired of carrying it alone. Yes. The single word landed like a verdict. Rowan's mouth opened, closed. His hands gripped the edge of the table. But you said, the doctor said I had a scar. That conception was unlikely, not impossible. I thought you couldn't have kids. His voice cracked. So did I. Turns out I could. I was pregnant 6 weeks after I left. Rowan stood abruptly, paced to the window. Rain streaked the glass. Why didn't you tell me? I tried. Twice. I opened emails to you and couldn't finish them. Every time I started typing, I heard you calling me infertile, broken. The reason you couldn't have a family. Her voice stayed level. I was 7 weeks pregnant, Rowan, carrying your children, while those words were still echoing in my head. He turned, anguish written across his face. I should have gotten tested. The doctor said, you refused. You decided it was my problem, my failure. She met his eyes. A different doctor told me something after the twins were born. She said, infertility is rarely just one person's issue. It's usually a combination. Sometimes it's timing, stress, factors nobody understands. Rowan sat down heavily. I have kids, 12-year-old kids who don't know I exist. They know a father exists. They don't know your name. Can the first... He stopped, started again. Can I meet them? The question, not a demand. That mattered. We finish this case first, Eva said carefully. If we get through it with some peace left between us, then we'll see. Not a promise, just a possibility. He nodded slowly. I'll take the possibility. The courtroom would now have to decide what kind of wrong Rowan Blake had committed. Negligence or deliberate fraud, arrogance or malice. But his real trial had already begun the moment he learned he was a father to children who'd grown up without him. The cost of unchecked ego isn't always measured in stock prices or prison sentences. Sometimes it's measured in missed birthdays, empty chairs at school plays, and 12 years of bedtime stories someone else had to read alone. The question wasn't whether Rowan could win his case. The question was whether he could own his part in a different kind of failure, and whether Eva would ever trust him enough to let him try to make it right. Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Harmon stood before the jury, her presentation polished and damning. Rowan Blake built an empire on deception. When reality didn't match his ambitions, he didn't adjust his goals, he adjusted the truth. The screens lit up with enlarged emails, Rowan's name highlighted in yellow. Fix the optics before the quarterly call. Make sure the board presentation reflects optimism, whatever it takes. I don't want to hear about problems. I want solutions. Harmon let each message hang in the air. Whatever it takes. That's not leadership. That's a man willing to deceive investors, regulators, and the public to protect his stock price and his ego. The jury leaned forward, absorbing every word. Rowan sat motionless beside Eva, jaw tight. When Eva stood, the energy shifted. She didn't raise her voice, didn't attack. She simply walked the jury through the complete email chains, not the cherry-picked excerpts the prosecution had shown. Fix the optics before the quarterly call was followed 3 emails later. Martin, I need full transparency in the internal report. No sugarcoating. Whatever it takes was part of a thread about finding solutions to operational problems, not falsifying records. The prosecution wants you to see arrogance, Eva said. And yes, Mr. Blake was arrogant, but the law doesn't punish imperfection. It punishes intent to deceive. And the evidence will show that when deception happened, it happened behind my client's back. Several jurors nodded slightly. Martin Fisher took the stand in a suit that looked 2 sizes too big, confidence already crumbling. Eva approached with a folder. Mr. Fisher, you reported directly to Mr. Blake, correct? Yes. And in March of last year, you received this internal audit flagging discrepancies in subsidiary accounts. Did you share that report with Mr. Blake? Pause. I summarized the findings. Summarized. Let's be precise. She displayed the original report next to Fisher's summary. The audit identified 8 million in concealed losses. Your summary mentioned minor accounting adjustments. Is that accurate? Fisher's face reddened. I didn't want to alarm him before. Before you cashed out 2 million in stock options, the courtroom went silent. That's not... Yes or no, Mr. Fisher? Did you sell stock before the losses became public? Yes. Midnight. The conference room felt like a ship floating above the city, lights stretching to the horizon. Eva closed her laptop. Rowan sat across from her, tie discarded, exhaustion written across his face. I started therapy 2 years ago, he said quietly. After the company hit $1 billion in valuation, I still felt empty. Eva looked up, surprised. I spent months talking about control, about growing up powerless in the foster system and building an empire to prove I'd never be powerless again. He met her eyes. My therapist asked me who I'd hurt along the way. Your name was the first one I said. Rowan, I saw you as a project, someone to fix, to build with. Not a full person with your own complexity. I'm ashamed of that man. Eva set down her pen. I appreciate you saying that. I do. But I need you to understand something. Her voice was steady, not cruel. I'm not that woman anymore. I didn't wait for you to come back or validate me. I built a life, a career. I raised 2 incredible kids on my own. I don't need you to complete some narrative. I know. Do you? Because I'm defending you, because it's my job, and because, underneath everything, I think you're not a criminal. But I don't owe you forgiveness. I'm not asking for it, Rowan said. I'm just asking for a chance to be better. She studied him for a long moment. Then be better. Eva pulled out her trial notes. Tomorrow you take the stand. The prosecutor is going to paint you as arrogant, reckless, and dishonest. You can't fight that by being defensive. What do? You tell them exactly what you just told me. The truth, not the polished, board meeting version. People can smell spin from a mile away. Rowan nodded slowly. I trust you, he said. I always should have. Eva didn't respond immediately. Then, trust isn't words, Rowan. It's what you do when the cameras are off and nobody's keeping score. I'm learning that... Here's the question that probably crossed your mind while watching this. Can someone who broke you ever truly change? We've all known someone who said they were different, who apologized beautifully, who promised therapy, growth, transformation, and maybe some of them meant it. But how many actually followed through when it got hard? Rowan's sitting in therapy talking about accountability. He's admitting he saw Eva as a project instead of a partner. He's saying the right things, but is it real? Or is it just survival instinct? A man facing prison, willing to perform redemption to save himself. I want to know what you think. Drop a comment. Do you believe Rowan's transformation is genuine, or is he just saying what Eva needs to hear? Have you ever given someone a second chance and regretted it? Or seen real change happen? And if you're invested in finding out whether Eva lets him into their children's lives, whether he earns that chance or loses it, hit that subscribe button, because this story doesn't have easy answers. It is a messy, complicated, deeply human truth. The next morning, 12 strangers would sit in judgment and decide whether Rowan Blake was a criminal. But Eva was watching for something different. She was watching to see if the man who'd once called her broken could finally become the kind of person who owned his mistakes, faced consequences with honesty, and understood that transformation isn't a speech. It's 1,000 small choices when no one's applauding. The courtroom would deliver one verdict. Eva's heart would deliver another. The courtroom fell silent as Rowan raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth. Eva guided him through his testimony with surgical precision. But the moments that mattered most were the ones she didn't script. Mr. Blake, did you knowingly deceive investors? No. But I was arrogant enough to believe what I wanted to believe. When my CFO told me everything was fine, I didn't push harder because I didn't want the answer to be different. Why not? Because I built that company from nothing. It was proof I'd escaped foster care, poverty, powerlessness. I needed it to succeed so badly that I stopped seeing red flags. He looked directly at the jury. I failed the people who trusted me. I'm sorry it doesn't fix that, but it's true. I am deeply, profoundly sorry. No performance, just the truth. Jennifer Harmon rose for the prosecution's closing. Rowan Blake wants you to believe he's a victim of his own success, but ignorance isn't innocence when you're running a billion-dollar company. He chose not to ask questions because he didn't want answers. That's not bad luck. That's negligence bordering on fraud. Hold him accountable. Then Eva stood. The prosecution is right about one thing. Mr. Blake made mistakes, serious ones. But there's a difference between fraud and failure. A con artist creates lies. My client ignored. Warning signs. That's not criminal, it's human. Punish negligence if you must, but don't convict a man for being imperfect. When the evidence shows the fraud happened behind his back, the jury filed out to deliberate. 48 hours felt like 48 years. Eva worked from the courthouse cafe, laptop open, checking her phone every few minutes. Rowan sat in the gallery, motionless, while reporters speculated outside. Sophia texted, "Mum, when are you coming home?" Eva replied, "Soon, sweetheart. How was practice?" "Good. Miles scored 3 goals. He's being annoying about it." Eva smiled despite the knot in her stomach. On the morning of day 3, her phone buzzed. "The jury has reached a verdict." She texted Rowan. They walked back into the courtroom together, side by side, but not touching. Judge Martinez took the bench. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." The foreperson stood, paper trembling slightly in her hands. "On count 1, securities fraud, we find the defendant not guilty." Rowan exhaled. "On count 2, wire fraud, not guilty." Eva's hand tightened around her pen. "On counts 9 through 12, negligent misrepresentation and failure. To maintain adequate financial controls, we find the defendant guilty." The judge's gavel fell. Sentencing was set for 3 weeks out. Potential penalties, substantial fines, community service, probation, and permanent oversight on any future corporate leadership. No prison. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Cameras clicked. Reporters rushed for the exits. Rowan turned to Eva, eyes wet. "Thank you." She nodded once. "You earned it by telling the truth." Outside, microphones crowded toward Rowan's face. He raised a hand, and the noise dimmed slightly. "I accept the jury's verdict and the consequences that come with it. I failed in my responsibilities as a CEO. I will make full restitution to affected investors and dedicate the next phase of my life to rebuilding trust, not wealth. I have no excuses." He didn't take questions, just walked away from the cameras. Eva found him on the side steps, away from the press. "That was a good statement," she said. "I meant it." Silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just waited. "Does this change anything?" he asked quietly. "With Sophia and Miles?" Eva looked at the city stretching below them, considering. "Come by on Sunday, 2 o'clock. Rowan's face shifted. Hope, fear, gratitude all at once. "I'll be there." "Ground rules," Eva said firmly. "No cameras, no press. This isn't a redemption photo op. And if they're not ready to meet you, you leave. No pushing, no guilt. Long-term consistency matters more than grand gestures." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because if you walk into their lives, you don't get to walk back out when it's hard. They've been fine without you. They don't need a part-time father." "I won't disappear," Rowan said. "Not again." Eva studied his face, searching for cracks in the sincerity. She found none. Sunday, 2 o'clock. Verdicts from 12 strangers are straightforward. Guilty or not guilty. Fines or freedom. The law deals in clear lines. But what waited for Rowan on Sunday had no jury instructions, no legal precedent, no closing arguments to rely on. Just 2 12-year-olds who'd grown up with an empty space at every school play, every birthday, every moment a father should have been present. He'd survived the courtroom. Now he had to face something infinitely harder, standing in front of Sophia and Miles and trying to be more than the worst thing he'd ever done. The question wasn't whether he could win their forgiveness. The question was whether he'd even earned the chance to try.